Hello there, welcome to my video. Before we start, I wanna make it clear that this video, perhaps counterproductively, is for people who may want to get their friends and or newbies into Puyo Puyo and not for said friends/newbies themselves, though you'll no doubt get something out of this too. I wanna instill some etiquette into people. Because way too often in Discord servers I see a group of people shout at a newbie to play their favorite Puyo Puyo game instead of trying to consider what the best Puyo game to get started with is for that newbie. My goal is to try and help you get people, friends and strangers alike, into this series you like. This is by no means a guaranteed method and should not be seen as such. At any rate, let's get into the video, shall we?
What's Puyo Puyo's appeal?
Generally speaking, these are the ones people cite when I ask them. The characters, the noises they make, everyone's unique chants and spells, their interactions, the art style, stories/lore, a puzzle game with personality, similar to those of fighting games. It's funny and charming, simple to learn, hard to master gameplay. Getting better at it equals increases the amount of fun you'll have. Keep these in mind because there's no blanket one-size-fits-all solution to recommending Puyo Puyo to new people. Humans are complex. For some the characters tickle their fancy, for some the gameplay only tickles their fancy, and you should cater to those likes. And maybe in the end they'll love all of the above points, maybe they'll keep just liking the points that reeled them in the first place. Maybe Puyo Puyo just isn't their thing, which is fine. If I'm honest, this does take some emotional intelligence, and it isn't self-explanatory at all to some, I have to assume. But I'll do my best to teach etiquette how I see it the best I can. Anyways, when recommending Puyo Puyo you'll have to adjust your approach to that person on a certain factor.
Do you know the person?
This is very important. If it's a friend that shows interest in the colorful cast and the wacky words they shout as the jellies disappear on screen in a pleasing rhythm, then don't be shy encouraging them to try a Puyo Puyo game out. Not all friends have everything in common. But if you're friends and know enough about each other, that alone should do a lot of heavy lifting and guiding them. If it's a stranger or someone online you barely know in a Discord server or something like it, then it's best to play it safe. You can ask a few questions about what they look for in a game and maybe consult the next chapter of this video to help guide you on what appeal you should lean in on and what game to recommend. A tip for both: if they show no interest, then accept it might not be their thing. It's disheartening not getting someone into the thing you love, but that's just life sometimes. Doesn't mean you have failed, it just means you've been pitching to the wrong people. And now for some
Do's and don'ts.
As an amateur writer, I find it easier to explain characters by what they wouldn't do rather than what they would. This is me doing my best to explain etiquette with that principle in mind, along with some do's with the don'ts. Some of these I'm not sure if they are do's or don'ts.
This is a series where you come for the story and stay for the gameplay or vice versa.
You can sell the game on both as well. But if the person is inclined toward one over the other, then sell them on story, gameplay, or even the aesthetics or the characters, and chances are they'll grow attached to all the other things. No need to rush things.
Rein in your passion a little.
I'm not saying to not be passionate. But it's possible you can turn people off to Puyo Puyo because you never shut up about it and keep trying to sell it to them. This goes for anything really. Games, movies, books, celebrities, memes. Sometimes people just get sick of hearing a thing, and instead of checking it out, they'll disassociate and distance themselves from it. Maybe you know that feeling.
Don't oversell how tough the gameplay is.
Unless the newbie likes to be challenged, don't fill their head with how hard Puyo Puyo can be. That can be discouraging. You won't believe how many people I see trying to get someone into Puyo Puyo and do this. You want them to get them into this series, right? Story modes are generally easier by design, so people who are here just for the stories can beat them. You can even skip certain battles if you lose enough at them in modern games, but I suggest against doing that if someone truly wants to learn Puyo Puyo, and in general. Most Puyo Puyo games have difficulty settings in the options menu anyway. Tell them there's no shame in adjusting it to their liking and switch it to another setting when ready for more of a challenge. Also in versus modes against AI the difficulty depends on the opponent they pick. They all have different skill levels and ways of playing Puyo Puyo. Maybe provide a list of what difficulty who represents. Though as of writing, I have never seen a list like that, and I've been a Puyo fan since 2017. Keep in mind difficulty of a character can change between games. Ali had the weakest AI in Puyo Puyo Chronicle, but come Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 she has boss tier AI. Honestly at this point I suggest only bringing up character difficulty to a newbie when relevant. You as the recommender can play endurance modes to get a good feel for who's in what ballpark of difficulty as they start off with weak AI and progressively throw in characters that have a more difficult AI. In story modes everyone's dialed down and proportionally balanced so don't worry about that.
Be supportive and encouraging.
If they struggle with the game, be kind and offer them some advice. Teach them some basic stuff to get through if needed. Beating a single chapter is already a huge accomplishment. Don't make them feel like that victory is invalidated by saying it doesn't count because they didn't do more chapters but harder. There's no shame in lowering the difficulty. They'll get better eventually.
Don't force them to use advanced tactics right away or funnel them into competitive Puyo Puyo.
Let them have fun first. Don't breathe down a newbie's neck for not using GTR or whatever else stacking method. Let them learn and experience the game however they want to. And if they wanna ask for help, then provide that. Try not to preemptively answer everything if they didn't even ask in the first place. When they are ready for GTR, competitive, and the like, then they are ready. But they gotta make that call on their own.
When you play multiplayer with your newbie friend, try not to do this.
I mean, I don't really play them. I'm not going to be very good.
It's okay, it's okay. I'll take it easy on you.
Okay, well, we can give it a shot.
Cool, let's play. Gobble, gobble! Ultra bam, 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 bam! 1,000 combo! Woo! Wanna play again?
No, I think I'm good.
Oh, why?
You wanna invite them into the series, right? Then don't 7-chain and above them as a welcome wagon. That is likely to turn people off. You don't want a chance and discourage them to try again. Losing to a human player is way more demoralizing than losing to the game's AI will ever be. They are just two different things. But if you do play with your less experienced friends, the games do have handicaps you can set. If you're good at the game, put your board on spicy and let your friend choose whatever they want. They've had these handicaps you can set for a long time after all. That's what they're there for.
So, about the lore.
Generally speaking, don't entice a newbie in with that. I know most Puyo fans love that Puyo Puyo has lore and that's a big appeal to the series, but hear me out. I think that's a terrible way to entice a newbie. It's fun lore for sure, and ideally, they get into it eventually. But have you ever thought about how much lore there actually is per game? Puyo 1, Tsu, and Sun don't have much of anything. Puyon has Doppel and her intrigue and amazing vibe. But when you peel off the layer there is nothing but fan non. And 25 years later it's barely followed up upon, and only shows up in the Japanese only phone game Puyo Puyo Quest. Box and Mina have nothing much of note. Fever 1 is a new world but otherwise is just another Puyo 1, Tsu, and Sun. Fever 2, 15th Fanny, and Puzzle Pop are actually the exceptions to the rule. And I will go into why later. And the rest, while they do provide lore, it's all contained within a single game for the most part, subject to change. Most of the interesting stuff are from novels, drama CDs, old dungeon crawling games, etc. Which is cool and all. But, for now, you're only just pitching the Puyo Puyo game to the newbie. All those novels, CDs, and dungeon crawlers are currently low on the totem pole of what they should be introduced to in my opinion. You shouldn't have to do homework to enjoy the main medium that this franchise exists in. Puzzle video games. I just don't think it's wise to hype up the lore when they're barely ever gonna see any of it. I've been around too. A lot of the lore goes over a lot of people's heads anyways. That, and I think it's just more rewarding to let newbies piece things together themselves. It releases a really nice feeling in the brain when realizing that Sega's run actually has a solid continuity. I hope I've made my case. This is probably my most controversial stance here, but I think it's for the best. Puyo Puyo is a series with lore, but it's not a lore focused series. I feel the same about Kirby. Entice newbies with surface level things first, like the funny characters or the surface level stories. They'll get to the deeper stuff eventually when they're hooked. Trust me. Unless you know they're the type of person that likes lore for lore's sake, and even then I have my reservations. But in that case do please let them know most games aren't upfront about it and they have to put in the effort to dig. And digging for the obscure can be fun.
Don't push your favorite Puyo Puyo games onto a newbie without a good reason.
Sometimes your favorite game isn't the best to start with. And while I believe you could give a newbie almost any game and if it clicks boom they're a Puyo fan now. Though I do believe some games are better introductions to get someone into the games. I'll get into what I believe are the best options later on in this video.
Don't overload them on things to keep in mind.
Give them no more than 2 things to keep in mind. Things like PPT1 will have a nasty difficulty spike, so be careful and I wonder what your thoughts are on a certain moment. If you give someone too many things to keep in mind they might get distracted from the game to remember everything you've told them. Keep the mind clear so they're less distracted. And I believe that covers it all.
Which game should you recommend to newbies?
I'll give you a bunch of options and I'll let you know which ones I think are the best for a newbie along with my reasoning.
Best. Puyo Puyo Tetris 1 and 2.
Until Puzzle Pop came out I considered these just the best ones to start off with. Either one of the Tetris duology will do. You may disagree for whatever reason, but the fact it's a crossover with Tetris is the biggest point in its favor. If they don't like Puyo Puyo they will have Tetris as a safety net. By default, that's one of the best. That and it's been proven that it has been a surprisingly good entry. Over half of the current fan base started off with PPT1. Like that guy who makes those Puyo Puyo in a nutshell videos. You know, that guy. Also you can buy PPT2 on all current consoles. Most other games are only accessible through emulation if you want them in English. That's important because some people are just against emulation or just plain don't know how to emulate things, let alone patch them for the English translation. And if they like either of these games maybe they're willing to try emulation to play more Puyo Puyo. Also who knows, if they use the Tetris as a safety net maybe they'll bounce back and later enjoy Puyo Puyo after all. They are frequently on sale, so have at it. If the one you're recommending this to someone who already likes Tetris you can't go wrong here.
Best. Puyo Puyo Puzzle Pop.
As of writing, this is the newest entry in the Puyo Puyo series. And it's a damn good one. Puyo Puyo Puzzle Pop is one of the most content-rich Puyo Puyo games so far. It's barely a contest, and it is made with a Western audience in mind. And with that I mean it gives you a full platter of Puyo Puyo goodness while catching Western fans up to speed on the characters and lore of the series. Serving up a lot of rule sets to pick from which Puyo Puyo Tetris lacks. The story could potentially be confusing for a newcomer, especially if they don't take the time to read character bias since it relies a lot on previously set up stuff, but some people might not mind that. Not knowing who's who didn't stop people from getting into Puyo Puyo Tetris 1. This game gives you a lot to work towards. And it's safe to say if you enter this game as a newbie and are determined to 100% the game they'll come out the other side pretty darn good at Puyo Puyo. There currently is a downside. As of writing, it's currently exclusive to an Apple Arcade subscription. Meaning you need an Apple device, God forgives your sin, and pay a subscription service. If your friend has an Apple device and doesn't mind paying, sure recommend it to them. But for the rest of us, wait until a console or PC port. If you're watching in the future you can look it up if Puzzle Pop is available. To me, it's a toss-up between Puzzle Pop and the Tetris games. Puzzle Pop is the best Puyo Puyo package so far. But never underestimate the power of Tetris.
Good options. Puyo Puyo 2. Most versions.
Puyo Puyo 2 introduced the standard rule set most other rules are based on. And that's the only rule it has. Which I think works to its benefit for a newbie. While the game lacks much in the way of character interactions, maybe recommend the Super Famicom translation patch which does have those. It does have a goal of reaching the top of the tower and beating Satan. I think the tower is an excellent motivator to get good at the game. If they can beat Satan at the top, I'd say they are ready for any Puyo Puyo game to come. My preferred version is the Super Famicom version called Super Puyo Puyo Tsu, but I don't think you can't really go wrong with any version besides the Neo Geo Pocket Color one. For the emulator reverse, they can get the game on Sega 3D Classics Collection on 3DS or buy the Sega Ages version on Nintendo Switch for cheap. Super Puyo Puyo Tsu is also available on Nintendo Switch Online's SNES app. So if you have the basic package, you already have that game at your disposal. All versions except the Neo Geo Pocket Color one are in Japanese, but I don't think that's much of a hindrance with this game specifically. Any version without the cutscenes is sorta lingual. Sure, there's some Japanese text in the game, but of all the games, I think you can enjoy this one the most without having to understand it. And as said, Super Puyo Puyo Tsu has a translation patch out there.
Good options. Puyo Puyo 20th Anniversary, Precise Museum Patch.
This one's a lot like Puzzle Pop, but lighter on content, but that's still a massive amount to chew on, so that's no real downside. I think this game is a good introduction to the current day cast and has a ton of modes. So if basic rules don't do it, a newbie may find a mode that slowly eases them into more basic rules. If you wanna 100% the game, you gotta win 200 story mode matches. That's a lot of Puyo, and that's plenty of time to learn. Do refrain from telling newbies that, though 200 is a big number. Playing 200 without realizing it is more palatable than telling them you have to do 200 to beat the game. One's fun, the other sounds like a chore. Yet it's the same thing. Direct their focus on the cast. There's a lot to chew on in this game.
I would recommend, but Puyo Puyo Fever 2 and Puyo Puyo 15th Anniversary.
Alongside Puzzle Pop, these are the actual lore games. These games practically give you lore as a reward at every turn. They are one of the exceptions to my rule that you shouldn't sell the games with lore to a newbie, and they are probably the most lore-rich overall. And soaking all that lore in is a great motivator to play these games. But we have no patches yet besides some out-of-date ones from Puyo Nexus. Which is the main problem, for Fever 2 especially, as that one's incomplete. If you are from the future, it can't hurt to check if the new patches are done. Also, while these two games are a bit of a sacred cow, and their praises are rightfully sung, I'm a bit apprehensive calling them great entry points. Fever 2 relies on the Fever rule, which not everyone's a fan of. I've been around and not everyone enjoys that rule, and anecdotally it overstimulates me. The Fever rule has a ton of rules to it that are not self-explanatory. But a lot of people were introduced to Fever 1 and became lifelong fans, so I don't know. Take my claim with a grain of salt. I've been told it's an easier game than Fever 1 at least. Fever 1 does not play nice. And 15th story mode relies on a roulette which determines what mode rule set you play. Which doesn't have to be a negative, but it is a game with a ton of gimmick rules. And while 20th has gimmick rules too, it gives you more freedom in that regard, which I think might be more beneficial to a newbie. And Puzzle Pop also has gimmick modes. Its main story only gives you Tsu with occasional stipulations. These games are great and should be checked out eventually. Fever 2 has a lot of unlockables, so if you stick with it you have a lot to chew on. And 15th Anniversary is a great party game, but I do think it's outclassed as both a party and single player game by others. It has a lot of fun conversations with the cast you won't get anywhere else as well. But any of the games above here are good places to start. But I have one dishonorable mention, one to not recommend to a newbie.
Puyo Puyo Champions.
I've historically been nice to this game, but I wouldn't recommend it to a newbie. It's just Puyo 2 and Fever rules at an admittingly cheap price, but there's not much to it. You could argue that I gave Puyo Puyo Tsu slack in that regard. But my counter argument would always be, what is the goal of Champions? This game is so competitive focused it hurts. No charming animations. The characters count chains instead of escalating their spells, they're only just PNGs in the game. No 2D puppet animation, or 3D models. The only good single player content is hidden behind too many boring tutorials, which is watered down from the Nazo Puyo games, which Puzzle Pop has more accessible anyway. In Puyo Puyo Tsu you scale a tower and get an ending. Reaching the top and beating Satan is the goal. Beat it again, but better if you wanna face up against a new Satan. Champions has nothing to offer besides online rankings. And as I've said before, don't funnel a newbie into being competitive. They'll do it when they're ready. Let them enjoy the jelly game at their own pace first. Let them enjoy the characters. And all modern Puyo games can be as competitive as Champions is anyways. Champions lacks what makes a Puyo Puyo game appealing to a newbie.
The appeals of Puyo Puyo. The characters. The noises they make, everyone's unique chants and spells.
They are glorified voice packs in this game outside of Thief mode. They are just a bunch of pretty faces to pick from since there's no story.
Their interactions.
There are no interactions.
The art style.
Not much to appreciate since you'll just be looking at the Puyo Puyo boards while static PNGs butt heads in a struggle.
Stories and lore.
There is none.
A puzzle game with personalities similar to those of fighting games.
Ironically, making an esports version of Puyo Puyo stripped it of a personality like fighting games. Though I'd be lying if I said there's no personality here. It just pales in comparison to all other games.
It's funny and charming.
Funny, not really. Charming, maybe. But again, play any other Puyo game if you want charm.
Simple to learn, hard to master gameplay.
This is still true, but as I said, other games give you more incentive to learn.
Getting better at it equals increases the amount of fun you'll have.
This remains true, I can't contest this. But again, kiddie pools are important. You don't throw someone who can't swim into the deep. And a separate point I wanna make, Champions low price isn't even that big of a boon. Remember, Puyo Puyo Tetris 1 and 2 go on sale a lot. And that's all I wanted to say. I hope it has been helpful. I'm not gonna enforce this, but I want people to be better about getting people into Puyo Puyo. So please take this all into consideration. Here's my Ko-fi if you wanna tip me for anything I've done. And here's my story, buddies pals, both in the description. Please read. Take care. I need to take a hiatus, my wrist hurts bad. I made this video despite that because I think this really needed to be said.